I don't have a Kelly Blue Book, but I do have a crystal ball. No, I'm just kidding. The first thing, you guys come on up. Whoops, sorry. So there's a little change up in our panel today because our partner, Brendan Messenheimer, who's our president, and my husband as well, but I'll tell you, it's really hard to work with your husband. That's been a whole other dynamic. And so we can talk about that over some wine one night. But he wasn't able to make it because he missed his flight. So the lovely Erin is going to be in my position, and I'm going to take Brendan's spot on answering M&A questions, talking about the market. So the first thing I wanted to say is that, 70% of all M&A transactions fail. And the industry is going through a lot of change right now. And the change it's good, it's always good, but it's always like really tough. And, a lot of these capital partners, they want to build amazing organizations, but they don't really know how. And that's why the people that are at the table in these transactions, and when you're pairing a buyer and a seller, you want to make sure that you have the right people at the table, and all the other things can come into place and will come into place. M&A is like matchmaking. It's really that simple. So today, we're going to talk about a few things that are driving the industry forward. As Brian said, I've been in this industry 20 years. I'm a friend of the industry. I care deeply about it. We have 20 or so DSOs right now that are in receivership. And that's because, of a variety of things that we'll get into later. But, we really want to focus today's conversation on really what's the most important, and talk about the hard things, and talk about some of the things that are going to help us improve our current position. So we do a lot of work on the buy side. Like Brian said, we actually work with a lot of female. We're the only female deal team in the M&A space. So we bring DSOs opportunities. And a lot of times it's women that are looking to sell their business. And I'm not about girl power, I'm about great power, like having the right people at the table. But women are, 40% or 60% of the graduating class now, and 60% or so own their own practices. And there are women out there that are actually building their own DSOs now. And we're helping them do that. That's another thing we do. We do DSO formation. So anyways, I won't go getting into all of that. So my friend Erin here will be the moderator for today. And then we have the lovely Carolyn Brown, who's an investor, and she's also, why don't you introduce yourself? Because you were, I don't want to I don't, yes. Okay, go ahead.
I'm happy to do it.
I can't do her justice, guys, so she can introduce.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Carolyn Brown. I'm a dentist, first and foremost, though haven't touched a drill in a very long time, but I still dream of treating patients. I wake up with it sometimes. And I'm also the founder of a dental software company called Different Kind. Different Kind is a patient-reported experience measures platform that is really providing valuable information back to dental offices every day in their huddles so that they know what they're doing right and where they need to improve. Erin Norris is our head of growth at Different Kind.
Hello.
And we're here together today. I also do work with HealthStream Ventures with Sam and Brendan, and Samantha and I have a newly formed company called Doublemint Ventures, which is the all-female deal team.
Awesome. Jana, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jana Macon. I'm the president of Curve Dental Software, that is practice management in the cloud. And myself, my executive team, we've been together about 25 years, and we've spent the majority of that time in healthcare SaaS, software as a service platforms. We entered dentistry about 5 years ago. Battery Ventures is our private equity partner, and we bought Curve Dental, which is a platform, I think along with Planet DDS, who came to market about 2006 in the cloud, which was really tip of the spear. So 17-year-old platform, we've been here 5 years. And our goal really was to bring a lot of the future of what we built before in healthcare to dentistry. So that is what we've been busy doing the last 5 years.
Excellent, thank you. And as Carolyn said, I'm Erin Norris. I'm the head of growth for Different Kind. And it turns out that as I got up this morning and decided which outfit I was going to wear, I was born to moderate this panel because I moderated a panel last year and I wore these exact same pants. So
Hilarious.
these are now forever known as my moderator pants. And I will only be wearing them in the future if I moderate a panel. So just so you guys know.
Love it.
All right, so today we're talking about future of dental M&A, how technology drives acquisition value. And I think first, if I know all my slides, obviously, Brendan, not here. We're now an all-girl panel, too.
I know, we are. That's cool. That's cool. That's me.
Okay.
In the male form.
So this is Sam. So I'm going to start with you. Sam, tell us about current state of M&A and PE in dentistry.
So we're still seeing a lot of capital coming into the market, but transactions have stalled a little bit. They're not acquiring as actively as they have in the past. There's been some stagnation and some even failure. As I mentioned, there's 20 DSOs in receivership, and mainly that came from just not identifying the right opportunities, growing too fast, not integrating the practices that you do have. And so the cost of capital is increasing, but we are seeing that it's not going to really slow down. There's a lot of new money entering the market from family offices, but the DSOs that are still acquiring are just acquiring more intelligently than they have in the past, slowing down a little bit so that they can integrate well.
Excellent. And Jana, can you speak briefly on the state of technology in dentistry as you see it today?
Yeah, I think the speakers already today have done such a great job kind of giving us a profile on the direction of technology and what's going on. I will say this, that I think it is so exciting in dental right now. There is so much money flowing into dental if I just talk to you from a technology company perspective, there's so much private equity money flowing in. Why? Who would like to guess what percentage of dental, talking the 140,000 practices that exist, what percentage are doing their practice management in the cloud today? Anybody want to throw out a number? 10%? 15%? It's less than 20. It's somewhere, from all the surveys that we do, somewhere between 15 and 20. And if you know about the technology adoption curve, there's this thing called the chasm that happens after your early adopters and your people that are super excited. To get over that chasm, you got to be at 20%, and then it starts to really kind of normalize. It gets to be the thing. Everyone gets comfortable. We're still right there. That's why the money's flowing in, because there's huge opportunity. And the good news for you as dental owners is that we're creating a lot of great software. There's a lot of money and time and knowledge being invested to create great solutions to try to grab your business to help you, to take you forward. So I think that is probably the most exciting thing in my mind that's going on in technology for dentistry, is the amount of money that's coming in. And then I think the other thing to know is that what that means also for you is the thing that we've sort of been talking about all day too, and that is the change, the decisions about change that you are faced with. And I would say, this is more me saying, get on the bus, because if you want to move forward and be a great acquisition target or know how to evaluate your acquisition targets more effectively, you want people who are adopting change, and that also applies to technology. Huge, huge issue where we're all kind of pushing dentistry into the future, and we want to see that happen because there's so many benefits.
Your stat on cloud software just always blows my mind, because I just think about my own interaction with technology and everybody else in the room. Is there literally anywhere else in our lives that we're still using server-based software? No, it's just crazy to me. Dr. Brown, can you speak about the current state of patient retention and acquisition in dentistry?
Well, I think COVID has changed both of these, parts of the balance a lot, because consumers are acting so very differently. And some of this is in pockets around the country. I think, one thing I can say unequivocally is that it's always really kind of made me scratch my head as a clinician and a person who's run and built multiple clinics and at a very fast speed, is that it's always on what is the patient acquisition strategy. How much are we spending on marketing? How many new cases do we have? And aside from ortho, every other practice in America should try not to start new cases. They should not, I mean, to me, it's the single most disruptive appointment that can come into your practice for the day. It's all hands on deck. Everybody from front office to your clinical team have to be busy, busy, busy. And it's still the least appointed appointment we have. 40% of new patients don't show up. So to me, the patient retention piece is really where you have the happy customer, where you can learn more about your customer to complete the treatments that they're ready for so that they continue to say yes and come back. I guess as a software person, I like that subscription model. But I think with dentistry, you have to earn it because patients are scared of the white coat, they're scared of out-of-pocket cost, and a lot of times we're building treatment plans that really focus on out-of-pocket cost. How much money can we get from the patient every visit? So, those things are really, it's always been part of our quandary, but I think we're particularly sensitive to it because we're seeing patients not return if they feel too much pressure there. On the M&A side, that we still haven't caught up with that on the M&A side because everybody's still looking at patient acquisition.
Right.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, when we're looking at evaluation on a practice, there's I think on average, 64% unscheduled treatment. If we could just look inside the patient base and find the synergies there, that's a no-brainer. And then reactivating some of those patients that are out there, putting together a plan for that. So I just wanted to.
Well, I was just going to say, actually, right before lunch, I was speaking. He's not in the room now, but actually, there he is. Hello, Chief Experience Officer for Open
cool,
Door, which I love.
We see more of that. Chief Experience Officer. That is a great role.
I absolutely love. That's why I started talking with him. I'm like, I love your title. Tell me about that. But you told me that it took 3 or 4 visits on average, before someone commits to a treatment plan. Was that?
We see a higher acceptance rate at 3 and 4 visits later than we ever see at their first visit.
That's right.
As they have had more experiences with the doctors,
Yep.
start to shoot through the roof.
Start to trust them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I love that, Dr. Brown, that you're saying, let's focus on patient retention at least as much as we do on acquisition.
Exactly.
Exactly. Awesome. I don't even know what the next slide is, so slide roulette. Tech infrastructure, diligence and valuation. So we're talking about the intersection of technology and M&A, and I'm just going to kind of open up to each of you to give your perspective on that. A few things I just want to frame that with, as I'm thinking about using technology in the M&A environment. There's sort of kind of 3 prongs I think about. One is using technology to increase EBITDA. Right? So how are you using that to increase your actual profitability? And then technology can also be utilized, and there's so many new technologies out now to help analyze the deals. And I know, Sam, you talk about that and some of the analytics that you do that you couldn't even do a few years ago that are available because of technology. And then the third one, and I thought this was a really good one that you brought up, Jana, and I kind of wrote down some language around it. So savvy use of technology legitimizes you in the eye of the buyer. So if you're making good technology decisions for your DSO, you're going to be taken more seriously by a potential acquisition partner.
So I just want to mention that, in doing these deals, it's really not a transition to me when I'm looking at this. Is I know that's a word that we use in this industry for M&A, but it's really about transformation. How can we make this practice, how can we first take it and put it under our umbrella and really take the synergies and maximize those? And if you're not using technology, there's so many blind spots. You're buying this asset and you don't even know how to run it, and having the visibility in front of you of, what is each of these practices doing, and, being able to pinpoint things is so important. And most DSOs right now still can't do that. Even with Jarvis and Dental Intelligence, which are awesome softwares, many of their team don't know how to utilize them to their fullest capacity, and time kills deals in M&A. So, if you have a hard time scrounging around trying to get all your numbers together, well, we may have to go on, right? So if you're in a sell-side situation, obviously you'll want to have all those data points put together, and technology helps with that.
Let me ask you, Sam, and totally we didn't prep this ahead of time, so sorry for putting you on the spot. You kind of caught the M&A bug with the whole ADP Heartland acquisition.
Yeah, that's when I came on the scene.
So how are things?
That's when I came on the scene in the M&A space.
So how has technology made M&A? Give me 3 things that are different now with M&A than when that first pass that technology is enabled for you?
Well, first of all, we didn't have a real effective way to, from a compliance standpoint, of actually seeing what was going on clinically. So our clinical compliance was really chunky. It was like people going out and we were just trying to use whoever we could find. Mm-hmm. But AI and the ability to go and see some of the things that are happening within the patient charts and things, we can do that all virtually now. So it helps us really with that clinical piece of compliance and compliance in general, right? And some of those things are not very sexy or fun to talk about, but they're very, very important when it comes to valuing a practice. And you want to make sure that you're seeing everything before you close, seeing much as you can. There's still holes. I think that we'll begin to see technology pick up in ways that will improve the overall process. But right now, it's really like, for me, that clinical compliance piece that's been really helpful.
Excellent. Jana, can you tell me, so on the software side, the tech stack that the DSOs are using, what kind of things have you seen coming up that are really making an impact as they're going to either acquire new practices or to sell?
Well, I'll say the groups that we're talking to, I can really only speak to those conversations, at Curve. It's a big decision, we get it, moving off of servers for groups and DSOs. There's a lot of moving parts. And I think that when people walk through that process and make the change, they get this revelation of, and I'm going to just talk about tactical things, but I think you'll kind of check them off in your mind as I say them. I've reduced my person's logins when they start as a new employee at my office from 10 to 1, right? I'm reducing, I'm streamlining everything that they do. Like, I loved the story this morning from the product manager from Denticon about the lady sliding across the floor. Like, I get rid of all that extra time. Right. I have consultants telling me about in these client server worlds where employees are going through the VPN and they're literally taking 5, 7, 8 minutes just for the login to happen. How many times is that happening every day around all of your practices? Like, add all that up. Like all of it. And then the funniest thing, we work with Aaron Roman a lot, and he has this funny shtick that he does sometimes about, servers always die on Sunday. You had the best week scheduled up at your practice, and Sunday night at 3, your phone's blowing up because your server, died. So all of these are real things that in dentistry we live with, we've accepted as necessary evil because there wasn't money and investment flowing into this market to make a difference, to build legitimate solutions that would allow you to make that kind of move. Now it's here, so the people that make the move begin to see these streamlined operations, these efficiencies they really never thought could happen. People who are much more aligned and going down a path, taking care of patients, the office is running smooth. I'm like, oh my God, the integration is broken between Weave and Denticon. All of our patients got these reminders that were wrong. Am I like talking about your regular life? This is real stuff. And so when all that drama, let's call it, kind of just goes away, the whole thing changes. Yeah. So I'd say that's what I hear the most from people that do make the change, that their operations are so much more tight and that they're able to measure, they're actually able to see. It doesn't take 25 days to do your reporting from last month because you had to pull all the reports out of all the different softwares and try to pull them together. All of these things, again, we're in this really big transformation moment in dentistry where there really is the opportunity now to go to this really high-tech way of doing business. We just have to be willing to kind of take that journey across that bridge and do it. And the ones that are doing it are finding huge gains.
Well, and medical's been doing this forever, right? Yes. And we always make the jokes that dentistry is like 10 years behind. But we've got to get there, guys, or we're going to be left behind. Your DSO should be on one system. And there's a lot of people coming to market that are on separate systems and things like that, and that really does devalue how the investor looks at you because they can't aggregate the data quick enough, or they're going to have to add another layer of CapEx or technology infrastructure to improve what you have, and that's going to take away from the overall value as well.
And Sam, you have a different perspective than a lot of the other M&A folks that are out there because you guys are buy side.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, what are you seeing from that lens? What are you advising your DSO clients from a technology's perspective to maybe look for, look out for?
Yeah. So, you know, what we're doing is trying to understand what's going on in the market as far as like the new technologies that are out there, and trying to cut the noise for the CEO, right, or in the C levels. So bringing to them what really makes sense, like with Curve and different kind, like what's really going to drive value if you can have a better understanding of what the business is doing as a whole through technology. So we tried to do some of that. But we really want to focus a lot of our efforts on, the match, the people at the table. I'm sorry to go back to that, but it's so important, because if you are sitting down with a guy or a gal that wants to sell, her practice, but she hasn't updated her equipment in years or her technology, it's the character of, is that someone you want in your group? And I think sellers should really start listening to that more. But I think you need to have hard conversations with these people too, and beyond like the numbers, because this is a true marriage, and you're not going to make it if you have people at the table you can't talk to. And that's really what it boils down to. The technology will help, blow that up into something beautiful, a great, compliment to the people. But we've got to start there. And there's no Q of E, like line item in the Q of E, which is the quality of earnings for human capital. And that's a miss, and I think we'll be able to.
Well, let's say that on pay. That's a great point. And we talk a lot now. I'm starting to hear many more people talk a lot more frequently about the patient journey or the patient experience. Well, how about the employee experience? Like, is everyone struggling to keep people working in your practice? Well, guess what? On your old systems where you hired someone who's 22, who's grew up with a phone in their hand. I have 22-year-olds. I'm telling you, it's true. I tease them. They have a full-time job on that frickin' phone. You look at their screen time. And so you have people that have these 2-minute attention spans, and they're working for the first time, and you get them to learn this dinosaur software. I'm sorry to say it. If you know me, you know me. I just have to keep it real. And so it took them 3 weeks to learn how to enter a patient and some insurance and close a patient out. Like, who wants to do that job? So again, it's that bringing things forward makes a difference in the whole ecosystem of what you have going on. And happy employees means happy patients. At least it's part of the equation, a big part of it. And then when someone comes to look at your practice and they go, man, these people have a vibe going on here. These patients love it.
That's right.
This practice is going somewhere. So,
and the buyer can sense that. Happiness is contagious. And if I walk into a group, because I've got a little bit of emotional intelligence, but you can feel it. It's either heavy or it's light, and we take notice of those sort of things,
And so, Dr. Brown, you've taken on the monumental task, you and Dr. Allen, the co-founders of Different Kind, of trying to operationalize and quantify that whole the human capital component of it. Can you speak to that? Because I know that beyond just the patient care in the office, there's also potentially down the road a payer component that's coming into that, value-based care. Speak to that and how we can utilize technology.
Right. So, that's really what we set out to do with Different Kind, was to find a way to measure qualitative feedback. First and foremost from your patients, the person who trusted you, walked in the door, gave you their time and money, so that they had a way to feedback. It was really based on what CMS does with hospitals. It actually sets their rates for how they're paid in the hospital system. Mm-hmm. So for instance, I live in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. Mayo Clinic's a mile down the road. Mayo Clinic gets $30,000 to do a knee replacement, but a tertiary hospital way out in Lakeland, Florida gets like $8,000. Well, that's because Mayo does a much better job. Their clinical outcomes are better, which we can pull from hard data, from ICD-10 and readmittance data. But the other component that's put into their CMS calculation are those surveys that you get when you leave the hospital system. It is actually it's part of the number. So as we were really thinking about this, and I've done a lot of work for 10 years with very large payers, not on dental, around ACO formation, taking upside risk, and value-based care. and have tried to work with some of the dental payers who are thinking about doing some of this. So I know that this would have to be an independent third-party platform that wasn't acquiring patients for you, that was really just there and based on evidence. There are patient report. I'm the lead author on the ADA standards technical report on patient-reported experience and measures. And, but what we're really seeing now that we've launched, we raised about $1 million and we've launched, kind of softly into the market and are a really good place to start to take on some new clients. And what we're seeing is that it's more like SoulCycle.
Yeah.
It's like positive affirmation every day to the practice. And that's not what we built it for, but that's really what like the use case has become. Because what we're getting is not only are we using AI to help expand and amplify the patient's feedback, but what we're seeing is that, people type crazy amounts of information, not only put in their numbers in the slide rule for different kinds on our questions, but type crazy amounts of information into their phone that they're giving back to the practice. It may be that, well, I waited too long in the waiting room, but wow, Erin, my hygienist, is the best, and she really cared about me, and I just love seeing her. So, that kind of information the next day when you can prop Erin up is this, team building, culture building factor. And so now we're starting to, we've just had 2 private equity groups who asked us, can we take the same platform and build the team culture piece? Kind of a 360, not review, but to be able to give feedback. And I think it's really important when we start to look at change and change management, because as we're entering into kind of this new wave of dental growth and consolidation, if you go back to basic business school and look at what does consolidation in industries look like that come from institutional dollars, you'll see that they start to value after the first 1 quarter, which is arguably where we are or a little past that, they start to look for agility as one of the main focus factors. Yep. So, how agile are you every day? How agile are you in your selection and use of data and of your software? I mean, I think there are companies like just even thinking about the hardware component, like Uptime Health is a great way to maximize all of that money you've invested into the equipment. There's another company, Tech-A-Go-Go, which I love, and Tech-A-Go-Go is sort of an on-call dental
like an Uber
repair
for service
group.
techs.
Yeah, so, it might take, even if you're Heartland, it might take, Henry Schein a day to get to your location, but you can call Tech-A-Go-Go and within an hour you have a service person there. So it's about not, being as agile as you can be. I think we saw a question or two.
There's one here first.
Yeah, you just type it. Yeah, you insert it. Okay.
The question was in
Awesome.
the middle.
Yeah, I'm from Connell Beach as well.
Come on.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah, we've done that. I'm curious on your take on when do you think Optum or Humana gets into this game, looking at the value base.
Yeah.
Dentistry plays a part of the overall oral health and systemic health. I'm curious what you guys take on, because I personally think that's where it's going.
Yeah.
There's other people in the room who probably don't. I also come from a background where I was in dialysis, which is heavy.
Oh, sure.
Heavy value-based and risk-based contract.
Did
And private equity.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Okay, I worked with Paul Amendola at American Dental Partners. Do you know that guy? Yeah. Good
So,
guy.
I think we've been hearing about value-based care coming to dentistry for a long time. I've written articles on it for back like 5, 6, 7 years. We were actually seeing some pretty good boardroom conversations with the major players just before COVID is part of the problem. So COVID kind of took the tailwind out, and if you look at any of the ADA numbers, you know that most dental offices are still only at about 80% of where they were prior to COVID. I think that varies with markets. But what we're really starting to see is just sort of those like HCP land, like 1s and 2s, where you're going to start to see pay for reporting, pay for, and other types of incentives that align with whatever the payers want. I do a lot of work with Alvarez and Marisol on their payer strategy in Medicare Advantage plans, and that's probably where we're going to see it.
Yeah.
Because the Centenes of the world, the Aetnas, the Humanas, they, on their higher metals, so those of you who don't know, most people in this room aren't on Medicare Advantage, but the higher metals, which are like the platinum plans, have an unlimited spend on the supplementals, which includes dental and the gym and vision, or it's a $15,000 per annum Limitation, which is grossly different than your traditional $1,500 dental plan maximum. So I think that's where you'll see it a little bit more. Also in Medicaid, sounds ridiculous. Why would Medicaid be the innovator here? But states like Louisiana that aren't typically where you think of healthcare innovation have already started to really roll out some VBC initiatives in dental. But happy to talk more and to have a cup of coffee with you.
Jana, you had a comment?
Yeah, I'm just going to hop on this Medicare Advantage thing. I just got permission from Optum UHG this morning to actually talk about this broadly.
Oh, cool.
So
This
you
is
guys
the
are hearing
first
something that
time.
really hasn't been advertised except
Like
at
before the
very,
press
very private
release.
conversations. So in June or May, into May, we released in 3 markets at about 21 practices true auto adjudication. Everybody goes to the pharmacy. Everybody knows auto adjudication. Okay, true auto adjudication with Optum and UHG. That is so exciting. That is revolutionary, transformative, every adjective you could think of like that. Now, we all know human behavior and we also know dentistry. So let's put those two together. And let's say that maybe in 5 years, the majority of claims will be processed in that way, which is amazingly exciting idea that you would be able to, but I'll just say that Curve is the first, and I'm very excited to tell you that.
That's awesome.
That's my one little Curve plug. Okay, I won't say anything else, Michelle. But what we do is we have built this into the flow of our software so that patient comes in, before they get there, I have a pre-auth. They're in the chair, treatment changes from right there on the treatment chart. I can get a re-auth. And then when they close out, you're getting the patient portion from their HSA card, and UHG Optum is releasing a token that pays the other portion. All of that happens across the credit card rails. Yes, there's a little percentage, just like credit card payments for that, right? But you just got your money 21 days earlier. No biller touched it. There were no errors, and you're done with that claim. So exciting, you guys. So I just want to tell you that you're the first ones to hear it.
That's awesome. And I'll just say that's 2 positions, generally speaking, in your practice that will, which I'm all about
helps
having
your
jobs.
EBITDA.
But yeah, which helps your EBITDA. But you could maybe refocus
Yeah, you can
those,
redeploy.
teams on something else.
And back on the patient experience part of that too, just we know from different kind, price transparency is one of the biggest sticking points for
Right.
patients. They're told it's going to be this, it changes. They're very frustrated with that. Cassie, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, there's a growing trend that I don't think is being spoken of enough, and I would love your opinions on this. But for a really long time, we were all about the time study of the practice, achieving efficiency with the schedule. DSOs collectively were looking like, how do we operate? How do we stack? How do we see the most production in a given day? And I think for the most part, that equation has been solved. But I think the piece that no one's really talking about, but they're trying to vet and understand, especially with the progression of AI, is we have a large influx of openings that took place in practices that became consolidated roles. So you have employees that are heavily taxed with a large degree of work.
Right.
And then as you time study not the practice schedule, but the inefficiency of your team, we're actually seeing in DSOs where they're taking the software that was used to see how people were acting and working efficiently from home, and now time studying what's taking them the longest to accomplish. Okay, so in a given day, our director of operations spends 70% of her time generating reports off of VPI and connections. So my question for you is, from the time study perspective as it pertains to employees, what are you doing within your company to alleviate that burden of how long it's taking an employee to do their tasks?
Yep, that's a great question. So I'll say that the way we design software, again, coming from healthcare and having kind of had this journey before, what we always do is look at how many clicks does this take? How many motions does this take? Where am I at already? How do I not change context? All of those things go into the design process. But what we're seeing now is my team, our team has been in 5 years now, is we're starting to see some really powerful ROIs that are really, I would call it boots on the ground, in the weeds. But we're talking shaving off 2 hours a day off of this person's job, 1 hour a day off this person, and it adds up to, a person, 2 people a month, right? And they're little things, guys. It's not sliding the chair across the floor to the file cabinet. It's like, I don't have to click into 4 screens to do something. things automatically happen. So that's sort of the next phase and what you should be looking for when you evaluate moving to the more modern softwares. Are there automations? Are there workflows that are doing things for you? Can you give it business rules and it can take care of some of these things for you? Can you have auto adjudication and some measure of your claims can just get handled? Can you auto post? Can I say auto posting's been in medical forever?
Yeah.
It's now in dentistry with Curve, where you can have true auto posting directly to your line level invoice. You never have to touch it if your claim goes out clean. If you have good processes and your claim goes out clean, it's gonna resolve them. So those are the kinds of things that you should be expecting technology to do for you.
In-store growth, I mean, it's something we haven't talked about yet, but I mean, that's just as important as, acquiring practices. And in fact, it's maybe more important, I would say, at this point. And all of the things that we're talking about today will fuel that in-store growth, and it's simple. It's simple things to incorporate that can make the hugest difference. And so when you're thinking about this, I think that you guys just need to understand that people are going to be like, I don't want to change. Integrations is the hardest thing on these types of deals. But if you've got your people ahead of time, the M&A team and the operations team working together on the plan, you can easily get everything integrated and, in 90 days be in a safe spot with the practice that you've acquired as far as getting them on your systems and then starting to streamline and run the practice.
I'm gonna play slide roulette again.
Okay, cool.
Protection and threats, tech infrastructure.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Cyber. Yeah. Well, a lot of that's been discussed today already.
I think so.
So I'm just going to
Yeah.
say a couple of little things, which I didn't hear all the sessions, so this might have been said to you already. But in one, it's very, very difficult, as Patrick outlined first thing this morning. It is very, very difficult to secure your own server, to have enough investment to do the things that you need to do to take it to the maximum level of securing. Folks like their team can do it, but look, here's what I know. Like just in dentistry, 22 and 23, 9 million patient records have been at risk through cyber attacks, right? Through ransomware attacks. That the statistic now, again, we're just talking about the stuff that's reported. Not everything's reported, but it looks like 65 to 75% of data actually gets returned once the ransom is paid. And as of this year, the amount of our money, or Bitcoin or whatever, the amount being asked to be paid has more than doubled from last year, right? Because we pay it.
Yeah.
Of course we pay it. We can't go into market with a huge breach and a HIPAA breach, right? So it's a terrible situation to find yourself in, sadly. We all know it. It's happening, right? Some of our friends, colleagues, some of the largest players around who you would think would have the most capability to secure themselves have had an issue. So these are things that you have to think about too as you're working on your systems and all the things you want to do. And one of the real big benefits of moving to a cloud solution for your practice management, that's the lion's share of your critical data. And you need to have that with a partner who's investing what needs to be invested, who's at the right kind of data center, who's securing your data and really has a philosophy and a strategy around data loss. What are you doing that if something bad happens, I'm really not going to lose any data? That is critical. And so those are the things that you want to dig into to protect yourself. That's probably enough on cyber.
Yeah, well, and I was really just before Erin went to the next slide, I was gonna, kind of just chime in with the protection and the threats, not even about the actual software, but more around reputational analysis. And I think, we really built different kind as a net promoter score tool. And, Erin has done a lot of discovery since she's, come to work with us. And, maybe talk about the one, the one.
That's a good point. So one thing that we were able to do, we have a case study that in 6 months of using different kind, we have one customer that had 29 one-star reviews through our private feedback. Only 3 of those made it to Google. In the prior 6 months, it had been 4 or 5 times that one-star reviews. So I think as you're thinking of protecting your business, it's not just cyber risk, but everybody has access to a world stage to talk about your practice.
Yeah,
so what can you do to protect that?
mitigate that,
Yeah.
That's good.
Good point. Thank you.
Great point.
What's next? AI and scaling growth. We have a minute and 58 seconds.
A minute and 58.
So
What
I
can we
mean, I
get through?
think we had a great AI panel before. You know, as a dentist who's grown groups and has an obsession with quality, the one thing it does allow you to do is really calibrate kind of your practice philosophy. I don't know that it's really been used by that as much, except for one or two DSOs that I know have been very doctor-led and have focused on that. So I think, you know, but anything that you can have a nice cookbook for can then become scalable as long as you're keeping a really strong and as objective as possible lens as to how you're growing and where you're growing. But I would just add that to maybe what the AI panel had talked about earlier.
Very good. Oh, and that's our last slide. Look at
That's our
that.
last slide. Please feel free to contact me at Brendan Messenheimer. I'll be way funner.
Okay, any other last questions for the panel? Thank you guys so much for being a
Thank you
great
all.
audience. Thank you for
Thank
putting
you.
up with me
Thanks,
as
guys.
last minute moderator.
Patrick.